Welcome to WikiPodcast. Today we're embarking on a really fascinating deep dive into a belief system that's ancient and incredibly influential,
Yeah,
the world of ancient Chinese religion.
that's right. We'll be digging into some core ideas, things like harmony, the role of spirits, which is huge, and that powerful concept, the mandate of heaven.
Exactly. And our listener, the learner, sent in some great material on Chinese folk religion. So our job really is to sift through this, pull out the key
Try to
insights.
connect the dots for you, make it quick, make it stick, give you those aha moments without getting bogged down. It's kind of a shortcut to getting a handle on this rich spiritual world.
Absolutely. Because this isn't just about old myths. These beliefs genuinely shape ancient Chinese society, top to bottom, how people lived, how they saw their rulers, their whole place in the cosmos.
It's fundamental.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with maybe the biggest idea of all.
Harmony.
Harmony, yes, that really is the overarching theme. And it rests on a few foundational concepts. First up, you have Tian, Tian, often translated as heaven, right?
Right, but it's more complex than just the sky. Tian is seen as the ultimate source of moral meaning. It's where the guides and ancestors live, and crucially, it's where the mandate of heaven comes from. We'll definitely circle back to that.
Okay, so it's both physical sky and a sort of moral power.
Precisely. A dual nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it's had different names over time, like Shangdi or the Jade deity, reflecting different facets of this idea.
Got it. So Tian is this big cosmic presence. What about Qi? That's a word many people have probably heard.
Ki, yes. It's fundamental. Think of it as the vital breath or the energy that flows through and animates absolutely everything. It's the basic stuff the universe is made of.
Okay, the energy of everything.
And it expresses itself primarily in two modes, yin and yang.
Yin and yang, like shady and sunny, dark and light.
Exactly, or dense and expanding. But they're not really opposites fighting each other. They're more like complementary poles of the same energy, constantly shifting, balancing.
Inseparable, almost.
Totally. That dynamic interplay is often shown by the Taiji symbol. Taiji itself means the supreme ultimate, this fundamental state of being.
Okay, so we have Tian, this moral source. We have Qi, the energy manifesting as yin and yang in this constant dance. Where do spirits fit in? The Shen.
Right, the Shen.
Yeah.
Veneration of spirits is absolutely key. And Shen is a broad term. It covers gods of nature, mountain spirits, river spirits, also humans who became deified, like the famous warrior Guan Yu, even household gods like the stove god looking after the family kitchen, and very importantly, ancestors.
Ancestors.
The crucial thing is these Shens aren't distant. They're believed to be actively involved in the world. They're linked to growth, expansion, the kind of outward energy, you could say the yang aspects.
Okay, active spirits. And they contrast with Qi.
Yes, Gi are often seen as more chaotic, potentially troublesome spirits, maybe associated more with the yin, the darker contracting aspects.
Interesting distinction. And you mentioned ancestors, specifically Jingzhu. That seems really central.
Oh, incredibly central. Jingzhu, ancestor veneration. It's this deep, deep respect and worship for the Zhu, the ancestors. They're seen as kind of intermediaries.
Intermediaries. Between who?
Between the living family and Tian, the heavenly realm. They've passed on, but they can still influence things, offer guidance or protection. It even connects back to ancient totemism, these very early lineage beliefs.
Wow. It really feels like everything is interconnected. The cosmos, energy, spirits, family history. Is there a moral dimension linking actions and consequences? I think I saw Bao Ying mentioned.
Spot on. Baoying is exactly that. It's moral reciprocity, like a cosmic balancing system. The idea is that your actions, good or bad, ripple outwards and eventually come back to affect your fate, your mingyun.
So kind of like karma, but within the specific Chinese framework.
You could see parallels, yes. It's about the universe maintaining a kind of moral balance, and related to that is Yanfen.
What?
Yeah, it's often translated as fateful coincidence. It's about those chance meetings, the opportunities, the relationships, good or bad, that seem destined or fated in some way. Part of that larger pattern.
So individual actions matter, but there's also this sense of destiny or fateful connections playing out. That's quite profound. Okay, let's go a bit deeper into the spirits themselves. You mentioned Hun and Po for the human soul.
Yes, the soul was seen as having these two aspects. There's the Hun, which is more yang, thinks the rational mind, the intellect, connected to Qi, oriented towards heaven.
Okay, the higher soul.
Sort of. And then there's the Po, which is more yin, the earthly soul, tied to the physical body, instincts, the sort of animal vitality.
Hun and Po. And what happens to them after death?
Well, their fate depends, partly, on how you lived. Proper conduct and self-cultivation were thought to strengthen the Hun, allowing it to ascend, while the Po would typically return to the earth. Neglect could lead to problems, like the Po becoming a restless Gi.
Ah, so how you live impacts your afterlife directly. What about Xian the immortals? Are they different from the Shen, the gods?
That's a really interesting point. In Chinese tradition, the line isn't always super sharp. It's not like a strict separation. Xin are often nature deities or deified historical figures,
Oh.
while Xian, well, humans could actually become Xin
Become immortal.
through intense self-cultivation, righteous living, maybe certain esoteric practices, essentially by purifying their qi and aligning themselves perfectly with the Tao, the way of heaven. They could achieve a higher spiritual state. Think of the Zenren, the perfected person or wise sage, as someone reaching that kind of status.
So divinity isn't just inherited, it can be achieved. That's powerful. And what about Ling and Xianling? Holiness and numinous power.
Precisely. Ling is that inherent sacred quality, the numen, the spiritual power or efficacy that a place, a deity, or even an object might possess. It's a state almost beyond yin and yang.
Okay, that's sacred essence.
And Xianling is when that power manifests. It's the god showing their presence, their Lingqi or divine energy, often through something extraordinary, a miracle, an answered prayer, an uncanny event.
Do you have examples?
Sure. The sources mention things like the Changwon Temple, the city god's temple, where maybe spoiled grain suddenly appearing was seen as the god reclaiming his space, or stories of the god Zhenwu, where healings were attributed to him, and then maybe snakes creatures associated with him appeared during an opera performed in his honor. That's Xianling.
Wow, so it's the active, tangible proof of the spirit's presence and power. Really brings it home. Okay, let's pivot slightly to something with huge historical impact. The mandate of heaven. We talked about Tian as the moral source. How did that translate to earthly power?
The mandate of heaven, or Tianming, is absolutely fundamental to understanding Chinese political thought for millennia. It's the idea that Tian, that ultimate moral celestial power, grants the right to rule to a particular emperor and their dynasty.
Grants the right, so it's like divine right.
Yes, but with a crucial difference. It's conditional. The right to rule is based on the virtue, the deity of the ruler, and the dynasty.
Conditional on virtue, so it could be taken away.
Absolutely. If a dynasty became corrupt, incompetent, cruel, if the rulers lost their virtue, then Tian could withdraw the mandate.
How would people know the mandate was withdrawn?
Often through signs interpreted as heaven's displeasure, things like natural disasters, floods, famines, widespread rebellion. These were seen as indicators that the rulers had lost Tian's favor.
And this justified.
It provided a powerful moral and religious justification for the overthrow of a dynasty and the rise of a new one. The new dynasty would claim they now possessed the mandate because the old one had failed morally. It linked earthly politics directly to cosmic morality.
A cosmic performance review for emperors. Fascinating. Okay, with all these complex ideas, Tian, Qi, spirits, ancestors, the mandate was ancient Chinese religion, one single unified system across the board.
Oh, definitely not. That's another key aspect. It's diversity. Practices could vary a lot from region to region, village to village, even between different family or kinship groups. Things were often very tied to the local community, the local landscape.
So, like, the god of a particular mountain might be important in one area, but unknown elsewhere?
Exactly. Or agricultural deities might differ depending on the local crops and climate. It was deeply embedded in the specific context.
But were there common threads holding it all together, despite this local variety?
Yes, absolutely. Despite the surface diversity, there was this shared underlying framework. The core concepts we've discussed, Tian, Qi, Yin Yang, the importance of ancestors, Jingzhu, the idea of moral reciprocity, Bao Ying, these provided a common theological and cosmological grammar, you could say.
A shared understanding of how the world worked spiritually and morally.
Precisely. And you saw common forms of social organization built around religion, like associations dedicated to a particular deity or temple, lineage associations focused on ancestor rites, pilgrimage groups.
And how did someone join? Was it about belief?
That's another interesting point. Participation was often less about professing a specific belief or undergoing a formal conversion, and more about simply belonging. Belonging to the village, the kinship group, the local association, and therefore participating in its rituals, honoring its gods and ancestors. It was integrated into the social fabric.
More about community practice than individual assent to doctrine. Very different from some other major religious traditions. Can we touch briefly on the history? How did this evolve?
Well, ancestor veneration goes way, way back, right to the earliest periods of Chinese civilization. It's foundational. Later, you see developments like the formalization of she altars during the Han Dynasty.
Deep altars.
Yeah, local community earth altars. They became really important focal points for communal worship and identity. And of course, China wasn't isolated. Over time, there were influences from other cultures, most notably from India, with the arrival of Buddhism.
Ah, right. Did that blend in?
Yes, there was a lot of blending and mutual influence between Buddhism, Taoism, and these folk traditions over the centuries.
Yeah.
Syncretism is very common in Chinese religious history. You even see assimilation of deities sometimes.
And what about more recent times? I understand there were periods where these traditions faced
Very
challenges.
much so. The 19th and especially the 20th centuries saw periods of intense suppression. Under various modernizing and revolutionary movements, traditional religion was often viewed as superstition. Temples were destroyed or converted to other uses. Practices were discouraged or banned.
A difficult period.
Extremely difficult. But then, starting around the late 1970s, early 1980s, things began to change. There's been a truly remarkable widespread revival.
A revival, really.
Absolutely. Millions of temples have been rebuilt, often funded by local communities. There's a resurgence of traditional festivals, rituals, pilgrimages, and even to some extent, renewed official interest in traditional culture as part of China's heritage. It's quite extraordinary to witness.
Incredible, this ancient system showing such resilience. So, wrapping this up, if we were to summarize the core takeaways from this deep dive.
I'd say it boils down to that deep sense of cosmic harmony, the constant interaction of yin and yang, the belief in an active spiritual world populated by Shen and ancestors who engage with the living, and the powerful moral dimension embodied in concepts like Bao Ying and, politically, the mandate of heaven.
And these weren't just abstract ideas tucked away in temples.
Not at all. They soaked into everything. Social structure, family life, ethics, art, politics, how people understood illness, fortune, misfortune. It provided a comprehensive framework for life.
It really paints a picture of a world deeply infused with spiritual meaning and interconnectedness. Okay, so a final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. In our modern world, which often feels fragmented, maybe even chaotic, do these ancient Chinese ideas of harmony, of moral balance in the cosmos, of responsibility tied to power, do they offer any insights, anything we might learn from or reflect on today?
It's certainly worth considering.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ancient Chinese religion.
A truly fascinating journey through these ideas.
Thank you for listening. Write us in the comments your opinion on the episode and what other topics you would like us to talk about. Subscribe to the channel to help us reach more listeners. Thank you and have an amazing day.